Hey everybody, this is Puka bringing you the first of many matches we have recorded from the first annual Florida Marathon. Now this is a round 7 match between Orion Craig, former national champion, on the left, and our very own Michael Pramawat on the right. And we're going to get started here. So, right off the bat, you might notice we got a mirror match here. Both people are playing the Magnezone Eelektrik deck. It focuses on using Magnezone's Lost Burn, and it's fueled by Eelektrik Dynamotor, which allows you to take a lightning energy out of the discard pile and attach it to one of your bench Pokemon. So it allows you to fuel Magnezone's Lost Burn, which does 50 for each energy you put into the Lost Zone attached to your Pokemon. So the two cards work very well together, and both players are doing very well right now. They're both 5-1. But this is kind of an important match because the winner of this will definitely make it to the top 8, and the loser might not. The loser will have 2 losses and could very well miss the cut, which would be a very big deal. So, missed a little bit of action, so let's catch up. Looks like Orion played a Sage's Training. He played a Lightning onto his Magnemite, Communication for a Cleffa, and then used Magnetic Switch to switch out to Cleffa. Now, since he didn't Eek straight away, you might expect that he had a pretty good hand, so Michael's just gonna take full advantage of this and just go ahead and say, yeah, I'm not gonna let you have your turn 2 Magnezone, and I'll play a Judge. Now, Orion, he did use Magnetic Switch, which is pretty important for conserving energy. And now we got a Thunder Wave from Dynamo, and there's heads to paralyze the Cleffa, so that's going to prevent Orion from using Eek, which is actually a pretty big deal. If that Cleffa gets knocked out and Orion is a bad hand, we could just see him lose straight away. But I didn't get a chance to catch his hand, so we'll see what happens. He does have a Collector, which is a pretty big deal. It'll allow him to get his basics out. Collector is kind of the card that defines the format. Whether or not you have it usually determines how well your game's going to turn out. Usually if you have a Collector, you can set up somehow, either by getting Cleffa or just getting your basics out. Either way, it's the one card you want to have in your hand at the start of the game. So we see Orion does have a Collector and a Communication, so that'll allow him to Communication one of the basics in and get a Magnezone. So right now he has the Thundurus, a Dynamo, and a Magnezone. Looks like a second Magnemite as well. He's going to go ahead and attach to Thundurus. He attaches a Fighting Energy. That might seem a little strange, but he does play a Terrakion for the mirror match, which could come up pretty soon in this match. Terrakion, using its Retaliate, can knock out any Magnezone, just doing 90 damage times 2, taking advantage of the fighting weakness. But we got some action here. Michael did knock out Cleffa with Speedball on Magneton. He was hoping that Orion didn't have anything, but he had a Magnezone, and it's looking really bad for Pramawat at this point. Orion's going to have a fully powered Magnezone. He's going to knock out Mike's Magneton, and honestly, where does Mike go from here? He didn't have a supporter in his hand. He was really just kind of hoping Orion had nothing. And I think Orion had like maybe a 1 or 2 card hand after he played all those cards last turn. So maybe he was just kind of hoping that Orion had absolutely nothing. He's going to knock out the Cleffa. And if Orion did not have a Magnezone, this would have worked beautifully. He would have been just fine. But he did have a Magnezone, and this is going to get ugly pretty quickly, I would think. Now, you might wonder, how does one go about winning a mirror match in this matchup? And honestly, the answer is kind of simple. You just take out the other person's Magnezones. Magnezone is the big attacker in this matchup, and if you can take out your opponent's Magnezones, then you're probably going to win, because Magnezone can knock out anything in one hit if you have enough energy in play. And yeah, that's about it. You have cards like Thundurus and Zekrom maybe, but those things do not knock out a Magnezone in one hit, which is kind of a big deal. But we did see Orion Lost Burn both the energy off his active, meaning he has a switch in his hand, and he's preparing to use Thundurus this turn. This is a pretty smart move. He planned ahead. He realized I cannot use Lost Burn for all of my prizes because then I'm just going to run out of energy. So he's going to go ahead and he junk armed away a lightning so he could dynamotor a lightning to the Thunderous. He's going to catcher out Magnemite and Magnetic draw for 5. So Orion is in a pretty dominant position. It's tough to see him losing from this point, honestly. He just took out another Magnemite. Pramawat's left with just 2 Dynamos and really no supporter. Oh, we do have a communication though, so you might be able to get a Cleffa and maybe claw back into this game, but it's going to be an uphill battle. I mean, look at Orion's side of the field. He's still got 3 energy on the field. He's got a Magnezone, a Magneton, an Eelektrik. He's got a switch in the discard pile, so any catcher shenanigans are probably not going to work if he has a junk arm in order to get the switch. And honestly, there's not going to be any pressure from Pramawat anytime soon. There's just 2 Dynamos, there's a Cleffa, and Orion's already up 2 prizes, so he's definitely got a cushion here. Even if this Cleffa stays asleep or he can't attack for some reason for a while, it's not really going to matter. He's got pretty much full control of the board, and it's going to take, honestly, quite a bit of a miracle for our own Michael Pramawat to make some sort of a comeback here. So and we do have a junk arm for a catcher. Thunderous will be able to knock out all of these measly little basics using Disaster Volt. For 3 energy, you do 80, then you have to discard a lightning. It's just kind of a cheap, quick attacker that works very well with Eelektrik. It's also a very good starter because it has charge. It can power itself up early on. And right now, I mean, just take a look. There are 2 Magnezones, 1 energy each. There's a Thunderous fully powered. There's an Eelektrik out there already. And what do they have to fight against? What are the intimidating opponents for all of these huge Pokemon? Dynamo, and Cleffa. So, right now Orion's going to take his 3rd prize. And it's going to take a miracle for Pramawat to even make this a game. I would say winning could be out of reach at this point. But it's hard to tell, especially with N in the format. If Pramawat were able to knock out both of those Magnezones somehow, maybe buy enough time with Cleffa staying asleep, something like that. Maybe Orion cannot move the Eelektrik out of the active position. That could always happen. Those would really be the only ways for Pramawat to win. If he buys enough time to catcher both of those Magnezones, get his own Magnezone out, and knock both of them out, and then end Orion down to 1 card and kind of win the game that way, making a huge comeback. I'm actually mistaken. Pramawat did take 1 prize. He used Magneton to knock out Cleffa early on. So Orion is ahead 2 prizes at this point. It's 3 prizes to Michael's 5. So still going to be an uphill battle. We do see junk arm out of Michael. He pretty much played his hand down to 0. He collected for a couple more Magnemites. Thankfully, none of those are prized. He has 2 more Magnemites. He got an Eelektrik just to get more energy onto the field. He realizes he's going to have to Lost Burn and get as much energy as possible onto the field. So he's got an energy on each Magnemite, just in case one gets catchered. And he's going to hope for the best, and hey, Cleffa stays asleep. So in order for Orion to attack this turn, he would need a switch and a catcher. So at this point, we've seen him play a bunch of switches and junk arms and catchers and stuff. So not too likely that he has a switch and a catcher. Eelektrik does have a 2 retreat cost, which is kind of the downside of the card. It's very, very strong, but that 2 retreat cost is really pesky. It can allow players to buy time if they catcher it out, and it's just kind of stuck there because you need to attach twice to it. It's not like Typhlosion Prime where you need to, or where you're able to use Afterburner onto the active Pokemon. Dynamotor only works on the bench Pokemon, so we're going to have to see if Orion did draw a catcher off of his magnetic draw here. He does have a switch in hand. We do see that Terrakion, which is probably going to be a big deal later. That's probably the biggest reason why Pramawat won't be able to come back this game. Even if he were to knock out both those Magnezones, there's probably going to be a Terrakion in his near future. And Retaliate is kind of a pain because, well, let's take a look at Michael's field here. Cleffa, 30 hit points. That's not going to live through anything. Eelektrik, weak to fighting. Tynamo, weak to fighting. And Magnemite, weak to fighting. So, a fighting Pokemon, such as Terrakion, would be able to just kind of plow through anything. And if that ever comes into play, I don't know how he's going to be able to deal with it, especially when there's 2 Magnezones sitting there already. But he's definitely going to try. You know, there's still hope, thanks to N. I'm not sure how many fighting energy Orion actually plays. There's one on his field already. So, there is still hope. This is not a dead game where Orion's just going to cruise to victory. A lot of things have to go Michael's way, but if they do, and they certainly can, we can see this be a game still. I mean, look at the field still. There's 1 evolution versus 2 stage 2s and an Eelektrik. So, it's looking ugly, but it could be worse. It could be completely over, but it's not. Alright, so I do see another fighting in Orion's deck. So he plays at least 2. Kind of a strange thing. You don't see Terrakion featured in Magnezone Eelektrik decks very often, but it is a very good card for the mirror match. And apparently it's worked very well for him because he's 5-1 up to this point, and he's in prime position to move on to 6-1. Like I said, the game's not over yet, but it's looking very strongly in Orion's favor, and we're going to have to see if he can close the game out. Now, once again, Michael's Cleffa did stay asleep, which, thanks to its sweet sleeping face, Pokebody, Orion won't be able to attack the Cleffa for damage. He'll need a Pokemon catcher in order to attack anything, honestly. Alright, we're just going to see a Collector and a Magnetic Draw, and there's still no catcher in his hand, so Pramawat has bought himself an extra turn. This Cleffa has been a lifesaver for him. It's just buying time, staying asleep. Who knew that being so lazy could pay off? And there we go. Whoa, he gets to wake up too. So a few things are going his way. You know, the start definitely favored Orion. The board position definitely still favors Orion. But, you know, maybe things are starting to turn around. We have a Junk Arm, getting a communication. Hopefully this will yield a Magnezone. This would be, there we go, there's a Magnezone. We could see quite a comeback here. We're going to have to start off, of course, with him needing to catcher a Magnezone and use Lost Burn for a knockout. There we go, we see the Rare Candy Magnezone and attach. We're going to say Magnetic Draw. Now, the reason Michael needs to get a catcher is because, well, alright, let's say he just goes up and attacks the Eelektrik and gets a knockout. What happens next? Well, Orion sends out his Magnezone and Lost Burns. And then, alright, let's say Michael gets another Magnezone and Lost Burns Orion's first one. Well, then Orion has a second Magnezone and he just kind of wins. So, here we go. We do have a catcher, though, and a judge. So, this is the defining moment of the game right here. We're going to see a Magnezone get taken out here. Michael will be able to Lost Burn this for a knockout, but the next turn is going to be the big one. Surely this Magnezone for Michael will get knocked out in return, but will he have a second one in order to respond to Orion's next one? And that's going to be the big question here. So here comes Magnezone. We're going to see a Lost Burn for a knockout, and this is going to be a very big turn. Alright, he's going to Lost Zone those 3 energy. And here comes Thundurus. He's just going to promote that because he can then Dynamotor to his bench Magnezone and reposition his energy if he needs to. At this point, energy is really not an issue for Orion. He's got, let's see, he's got 5 in play already. He gets an attachment and a Dynamotor. If he gets a second Eelektrik, another Dynamotor would, I mean, that would just put tons of energy on his field. So he's not hurting for energy. That's not the problem. He just needs to have enough attackers to win the game. And one of his Magnezones is gone. Michael did knock that out. We're going to see an N. So, who knows? Michael could very well win this game. The problem is he's going down to 4 cards. He does not have his second Magnezone in play. And this active Magnezone surely will get knocked out. And then he's going to be left with a very low hand size. And oh, there's a rare candy and a Magnezone from Orion. And that might be the end for Michael, but we'll see what happens. It's going to make it very tough. But, you know, if Michael could somehow get back third Magnezone, he would just barely win the game. So, I don't want to say that Magnezone was the nail in the coffin, but it's looking like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. We're going to see Thunderous Retreat. Discards the fighting energy, which is interesting. Sends up one of the Magnezones here. Attaches an energy, and we're going to see a Lost Burn. And Orion will go down to 2 prizes after he attacks. Michael left at 4. Still staring down 2 Magnezones, so looking kind of ugly. We'll see if he can find a way out. It's going to be very difficult. Like I said, this matchup is all about keeping your opponent away from his Magnezones. And Orion has been the one who's been able to do that so far. He's been able to knock out Michael's Magnezone. Really, he's knocked out a Magneton, a Magnemite, and a Magnezone. And Michael has only been able to knock out the one Magnezone, and that was after Orion was already fully set up. So, Orion definitely had the better start. He's at a huge advantage. We'll see if there's any way Michael can come back. He does communication to Magneton in, meaning he's going straight for that Magnezone, so he did get a pretty good hand off of the N. This could be big, depending on whether or not Orion has an energy in his hand. We could see him miss a Lost Burn retaliation next turn. And that would mean Michael would have an opening to win. So this is actually kind of close, depending on what happens here. Oh, he does play an N as well, so maybe Orion won't be able to get that energy next turn. He will have a magnetic draw, of course, but he's got quite a few energy in that Lost Zone and in his discard pile. A couple in play as well, so it's not a guarantee that he'll have an energy the next turn. See, what's going to happen here is the active will get knocked out by Lost Burn. However, Orion does not have an energy on his bench Magnezone, meaning if he does not have an energy, he'll only have 1 Dynamotor, which means only 1 energy can go on to his next Magnezone. And if he doesn't have an energy to attach or a second Eelektrik, he won't be able to use Lost Burn. And that will allow Michael to be able to knock out both of Orion's Magnezones, and this would allow him to come back in this game. So this is going to be the turn of the game. What's going to happen here? Can Orion return a knockout on this Magnezone? If he can, that's probably going to be the game. And oh, there's the Eelektrik. So I got to think that's going to be the end, but we'll see here. Here's a Collector. See what he grabs. Grabs the big bad Terrakion. Mean looking Pokemon there. It's looking especially mean right now if you're Mr. Pramawat on the right. But he's going to have a magnetic draw for 4. He's going to bench it down, so he's actually going to get 5. And if he gets a fighting energy, that's going to be even worse. It's actually just going to be the end of the game if he gets the up. And there's a Dynamotor, second Dynamotor, and there's the fighting energy. This is going to be pretty much it. We're going to have a Retaliate for a knockout. And then we're just stuck in the spot where if Michael knocks out the Terrakion, Magnezone will knock him out. If he catches out the Magnezone and knocks that out, Terrakion can retaliate anything for a knockout, and he'll lose. So at this point, honestly, Michael's only option would be to catch her out an Eelektrik and hope to deck Orion. Not a very good option, but that's all he's got left. Maybe he would catch it out and then try to use Thunder Wave with Dynamo to keep it in place. But you got to think Orion's got a switch left or something like that, and that probably won't work. But that will be the only way that Michael can win the game. He really doesn't have any other option. He can't really attack and take a prize and win anymore. He cannot win by prizes. He probably realizes this, and it's a desperation time. All he can do is try to catch her out. Eelektrik, that's if he has an Eelektrik. He's just counting out Orion's energy, seeing maybe he can catch her up in Eelektrik and make it so Orion can't attack anymore. It's probably not finding a good number. Looks like there's about 6 in the lost zone and then 4 in play. So Orion definitely has energy left. We saw he actually has one in his hand. So maybe Michael was thinking about if Orion was out of energy, he could actually catch her out Magnezone and just kind of leave it stuck. If Orion didn't have another energy, then it would be over because he could never attack or retreat the Magnezone. He would just kind of deck out. So Michael's just gonna catch her out Eelektrik and pray. He's got a decision to make here. Where does he want to attach? He's just gonna attach to Eelektrik and a Dynamotor as well. Yep, he's gonna attach to Dynamo and Eek. Okay, so his plan is to catch her and stay asleep with Cleffa. So this is actually kind of a better plan than using Thunderwave because there's 2 hurdles your opponent has to go through. The first one is getting that Eelektrik out of the active spot, and the second one would be if Cleffa stays asleep, do you have a catcher to get around it? So Michael could get very lucky here, but there's the heads, and there's a switch, and that'll be the game. So Orion just showing Michael as well that he did have a junk arm, so there was a catcher in there as well. No way for Michael to win that game. Just too poor of a start. Orion got way far ahead. We almost saw a comeback there. That was really close at the end. But in the end, Orion just had too many Magnezones, and the Terrakion was the finishing blow. So Orion will move on to 6-1. He will move on to the top 8. Michael will be 5-2, so he's going to be on the bubble. We'll see whether or not he makes it in. And our next matchup will be a top 8 match, so stay tuned for that. For more Florida Marathon coverage, this was round 7 of the Davie, Florida City Championship. We'll have plenty more matches to come. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next one.